All contents, including opinions and views expressed, are ours alone and does not necessarily represent the opinion of the City of Wilmington or its employees. The City of Wilmington has not approved of and is not responsible for the content of this podcast series. Thank you and enjoy the podcast.
Welcome to The Cop and the Shrink, a podcast exploring mental health, law enforcement, and societal issues from the perspective of a police officer and a mental health professional. Have questions about current events, social media, mental health, or police matters? Visit thecopandtheshrink.com. Let's get this episode started with your hosts, Harold Bozeman and Dennis Carradine.
Good evening. Welcome to the Cop and the Shrink podcast. I obviously am the Shrink.
And I'm still the cop.
Still the Cop. Is this the thing that I go, we go? We talked about this earlier, that this has been literally the longest hiatus we've had because of scheduling issues. You know, we're busy people, man.
You know, life gets away from you sometimes, right? It's been, since March since we've sat down to talk to the good people.
I went over our last podcast and it was like, no, we're going to be back. We're going to be doing more. And it just didn't happen. It really didn't happen. But we are back. So welcome again, the Cop and the Shrink. Make sure you follow us on all the interwebs, on Facebook, Instagram, and OnlyFans now. That's, it's just weird, but we have it. No, just kidding. Also go to the copandtheshrink.com. Oh my God, I'm so out of practice. I can't even give all our information out.
I'd like to say it's like riding a bike, but Joe Biden proved that theory wrong, did he not?
Yeah. Oh my God, the memes of that have been gold. So we want to recognize one of our supporters here, old Jim Wyatt with Great Cigar Reviews. If you could see that, please make sure you go to Great Cigars on Instagram or on Facebook. We also want to make sure you get to his website, greatcigarreviews.com. He has T-shirts and patches for having a smoke and a beer that helps us support not only this program, but Survivors IPA. Also, we want to congratulate Jimmy out there. Jimmy became a full-time police officer in Pennsylvania. So congratulations, man. Welcome to the Brotherhood. You're going to have an awesome time. I believe he is a third-generation police officer.
It's good stuff, yeah.
Good stuff. He's done it, man. He went through the academy, did the part-time stuff. Now he's full-time. And still going strong with Great Cigar Reviews. And literally, if there's two people in the world, and I throw this completely out, that I will trust their cigar review, okay, is number one is Jimmy. Jimmy is amazing. The other one's Rami Dacko, who is another, if you follow Rami on webs, RAMIDAKKO. Two amazing people. They're friends. We're friends with them. Two amazing people's unbelievable cigar reviews. Really good stuff. So, congratulations, Jimmy. We love you out there. Keep it going. And we're also going to talk about this plethora of beverages that we have throughout. We have a ton of stuff here that we're going to discuss, and we also have something that we are launching that's going to be towards the end. Something really, really cool. Your chance to do something really cool and win something really cool. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
We'll talk about that in our current events section.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. So we got a couple of topics. A lot has happened, my friend, since the last time we sat down and talked.
So many things, yeah.
Too many things. And I think we open this up because there are some current topics here, and and we sit down, and for those that have listened to us, and we've mentioned this, we sit down beforehand and we talk about the current topics and we talk about the different things that we want to discuss on air and all. And there's so much right now that it's hard to just pick one or two things.
Right. So, anybody who's been watching the show knows that we usually pick a pair of topics, and we do a segment on one topic, we take a break, we do a segment on another topic. But there's just so much going on in the world right now, and it all looks like it's so, if not connected, at least related.
Right.
I think we're just going to spend the show today talking about this plethora of things that are going on and kind of how they are affected by the world and how they have affected the world.
Right. So, sadly, since the last time we spoke, and that was, I think, March, April, sometime back then, sadly, in the United States right now, if you look at the statistics with it, mass shootings are on a crazy rise. I mean, the numbers are going through the roof with it. So I went and did the math a little bit earlier. This was a topic that I got into. You know, poor Hal come walking in, and I'm ready to go. I'm like, we're talking about this. So since the time that our last podcast was done to right now, the number of mass shootings, guess how many mass shootings since that time to this time?
From March till now, how many mass shootings?
And now, remember, we have to define a mass shooting as 4 or more victims, meaning that they're either dead or shot. Right now, that's what gets classified as a mass shooting.
4 or more in the same incident.
Same incident.
It's hard to say. You know, that they don't all get reported, sadly. I think that's another sad commentary on society when things like that don't get reported routinely. We hear about the really big ones and the really tragic ones, but really everyone is tragic, and we don't hear about them all. But if you want me to throw a guess out there, let's go with 20.
The cop shooting low on that one. 281 reported mass shootings since our last podcast to now. Now, they are not reported on air. They are not media folks. This is reported through different sources, including Police Source One and a few other ones.
So I guess there are. I mean, when you think of a mass shooting in the most prevalent sense of the word, you think of the big events. You think of the school shooting. You think of the workplace, the Navy Yard, things like that. But I guess by the strictest definition, by the 4 or more shot in one incident at the same time, that those things, I guess, do take place in some of our bigger cities and some of our urban centers every weekend.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility to think there might have been 200 such incidents.
Right. As defined by what they're saying.
Right.
You know, now when you have something, and again, we point this out. We are not here for commentary to tell you exactly everything that has occurred, because, you know, that is speculative at best of why this occurs and all. But we're here to kind of talk through it. But 2 of the greatest ones that happened since the time we spoke last: Buffalo, New York, and Uvalde, Texas.
And the Brooklyn subway shooting.
Oh my God, yeah, that was actually in what? It was late April.
It was just before Buffalo.
Yep.
It was probably a week, I think 10 days before Buffalo. And then
you're absolutely right. And those are the ones that made media, you know, that made it out there in the mainstream media. And we've seen the same thing occur over and over and over again. And I'm speaking directly from my perspective. I don't want to put any words in anybody's mouth, but the same thing happens every single time that a mass shooting happens. People cry out for gun control. We offer our thoughts and prayers, and nothing happens. And we saw that. Like Uvalde, Texas, you know, you look at the victims down there. This was a very similar case to Sandy Hook, which in my definition was one of the most difficult crisis calls that I had ever been on. That in Uvalde, Texas, you had innocents lost down there. And what was the battle cry?
Gun control.
Yeah, gun control.
We've talked about this on air, off air, as friends, as colleagues. We've talked about this. So anybody who knows me knows where I stand on the battle cry about gun control. There are literal thousands of firearms laws on the books.
Mm-hmm.
There are bail recommendations, there are sentencing guidelines, there are minimum sentences, there are conditions about buying, there are conditions about selling, there are conditions about possessing firearms. It's already illegal and has been for recorded history to murder someone. There are already laws.
Well, it's biblical. Thou shalt not kill.
I think that all of these cries for gun control because somebody, and it was said after Uvalde, just do something.
Right.
Well, I've got an idea. Let's get our attorneys general and let's get their deputies and let's get our judges all on board with effectively prosecuting, appropriately sentencing the gun cases that the police bring them.
Right.
There is a local police agency where one patrol platoon, which has a staff of 35 people, and those 35 people work 14 days a month.
Mm-hmm.
And this patrol platoon has seized in excess of 40 guns this calendar year. Just the one platoon. The other platoons have their share of guns as well.
Yeah.
So hundreds of guns are being taken off the streets in a mid-sized American city, and the shootings continue.
Right.
So the problem isn't gun control. The police are doing all we can to control the guns, right? We're getting the guns, we're seizing the guns, we're destroying the guns, we're prosecuting people for having the guns. We're controlling the guns. We need more people control.
Yeah.
Right? We need the prosecutors and the judges and the justice system and the prisons to control the people on the other side of the gun.
Right.
The arrests are being made, the evidence is being presented, the cases are good, and we've got this whole national movement towards jail reform and bail reform and prosecutorial reform. And all reform means, to a lot of people that are screaming for reform, all reform means is less punishment.
Right.
There is a reason why people will walk into a Walgreens in San Francisco with a shopping cart and walk out with $800 worth of goods, because they know they won't be prosecuted for less than $900.
Right.
And that's the same thing that's going on with guns. People, as juveniles, unfortunately, a lot of our violent crime is done by people 17 and under,
Right.
because they know on their 18th birthday that record gets sealed. They're not going to do any jail time. There are sentencing guidelines for people who are arrested and charged under 18. Mm-hmm. And so we need to do more people control. It's the people behind the guns, right? There are 1 trillion rounds of ammunition and 400 million guns that are all legally owned in this country. If the guns were the problem, it would be fairly obvious.
Right. I think you wouldn't necessarily see if there weren't those restrictions, truthfully, what we would see is seeing out a tombstone every other day, right?
There'd be gunfights in the streets.
Yeah, it would be pure insanity.
There would be more gunfights in the streets. I like the thought of people control. Now, that sounds horrible, right? It's coming from the shrink. Let's people control. Behavioral control. But if we look at it, and this is what I had postulated, this is, my thinking over multiple Zoom meetings and discussions and going to these events, going to these mass shootings and so forth. When I come out of it, I look at that person. I look at the shooter. Now, I will never, ever, ever use their name. I won't. And I know several of us won't that are in this field or similar fields that will not use their name because they've already gotten the notoriety. I don't need to give them a goddamn thing about anything else in their lives. I don't have to mention them. But I will say they're all similar. And I know that sounds a little freaky, but they're all similar. The 18-year-old in Uvalde is very similar to the 18-year-old in Buffalo. Now, initially people are going to come out, well, that's wrong. The one in Buffalo was clearly motivated by racism, and Uvalde, he was a troubled youth. Or stop. You can easily draw parallels though between Uvalde and Sandy Hook. Their
very
behavior,
quickly.
their pre-crime behavior was very similar.
Yep.
Their access to the guns was very similar. So you can draw parallels between the two of those.
My thought in the similarity with this is that for 20 minutes or however long it took for them to kill the people that they did, to murder the people that they did, they felt like God. And it was addictive. And that was their whole point, was that they wanted to destroy life. Didn't care by the means that happened to be the guns, but they wanted to destroy life. And for that moment, they picked and chose who would live and who would die.
Right.
And how can you change a person's thought pattern that wants to feel like God? It's damn near impossible, right?
Yeah.
Look at Joel Osteen. No, we're not putting. but if you want to feel like God for that time, you will do whatever it takes to make that happen. And then I postulated that we have to look at these mass shootings very similar to a rapist, right? A rapist, and we all have to agree to this. I don't care who you are. You need to hear this, and you need to agree with this. I don't tell people what to do. That's not my purpose and my job. But this is an agreement factor, is that rape is not about sex. Rape is about power, control, and violence. We could all agree to that, correct?
Yeah.
So if we all agree to that a rapist that is castrated, that it might be medically castrated, will still continue to try to rape based in that power, control, and violence. We'll just use other means. So if we look at these shooters and we look at these folks that are doing these heinous acts, this is about power, control, violence, and feeling like God.
Right.
They're going to do it by any means possible.
And like you said, it's by any means. This is just a tool. The firearm that they chose is their tool. We've also seen people like Eric Robert Rudolph, who was bombing and setting fire to things. We see the Oklahoma City bombings. We see other means. We see a guy running through a Christmas parade in an SUV, mowing people down with a truck, using a truck as a weapon.
48 people that
there was no call for SUV control.
No,
and there was no call for U-Haul control.
Yeah.
I mean, so again, like you said, these people are on this mission to control. They're on this mission to feel like God, to feed their need to have control over a situation, have control over the lives of others, to have some determination over somebody else's fate. They have this internal need for that, and they're going to carry it out however they can. And for a lot of them, the gun is the easy tool. They somehow get access to it, or they know where to get access to it, whether legally or not, and they see it as an easy means to an end. Right. But as we've seen time and time again, if the gun's not the means to the end, something else will be.
And this isn't to take away to say that a gun is a destructive weapon. We're not saying that. You and I sitting here are not saying that gun is not a destructive weapon.
Of course not. But it's the way that it's used, right? They function exactly as they're designed.
Right.
But so does a chef's knife.
Right.
And people use chef's knives to assault people all the time.
Right. And I would favor to believe, and I don't know the statistics out there. I don't. This might be something that we could look at a different topic and all, but I would favor to believe that there's more knife incidents than there are gun incidents. I would favor to believe that. I don't know.
I think that it's telling that every time there's a mass shooting that's carried out with a rifle, with a semi-automatic rifle, we call for the control of semi-automatic. These are weapons of war. These are destructive instruments, blah, blah, blah. By orders of magnitude, simple handguns are used to kill and injure people more than rifles than any rifle. Right. Every handgun model is used more than every rifle model combined.
Yeah.
So
there was something in the books about, you didn't want a magazine that held more than 18 rounds. Like, we're going to outlaw the one that holds 24 rounds. And I can't get through my little shrink mind of, okay, so killing 18 people is acceptable, but not 24. You know what I mean? I'm being very facetious about that. But
here's the thing about that too. These people that get in their mind that they're going to carry something like this out.
Right.
You don't think they rehearse it. You don't think they practice their skills. You don't think that they go over the plan in their mind. Somebody who's been trained by the military, or somebody who's done any modicum of practice on their own, watching YouTube videos and just doing some hands-on, you can carry out a magazine change in about a second. So if I have one magazine that holds 20, or if I have 3 magazines that hold 12 each, I'm doing the damage.
Boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
It takes no time at all.
Well, you look at, let's go back to Columbine a second, because this will factor into other things that we're going to discuss. But let's go back to Columbine, and we look at those 2 boys at Columbine, okay? They themselves had practiced. They put it up on, that was the first, what was it? That was kind of the beginnings of YouTube. I think, old Tom and MySpace was still around, and they put it up on YouTube that they were doing kind of where they were clearing areas in the woods, and they were practicing.
There was still Usenet at that time, so they were putting it up on the message boards on Usenet and on the.
And they were.
YouTube came out like 7 years later.
Okay, so this wasn't even YouTube. It was out there and just like.
It was on Usenet.
Usenet, and they were putting it out there for people to see. They were probably using VCR tapes. But when they put it out there, didn't anybody anywhere think this is unusual behavior for a group of kids to wear black trench coats and combat boots and practice shooting? Nobody in their worlds at that time went, this might be a little screwed up. Okay, now let's snapshot to Sandy Hook, a kid with deficits. He had basically moderate, at the time they were calling them Asperger's, but moderate autism. That the mother was a doomsday prepper. This was what everybody called her and so forth. Taught this kid not how to shoot, but how to kill. how to eliminate the targets that would come to her house. She ended up having over 27 weapons in the house herself. Taught this child that had already had a deficit how to kill. And then when he decided he was going to do his plan, slit the mother's throat, grabbed her guns, and then went into Sandy Hook. At what point don't we say there's something wrong here? Okay, we can now go to the kid in Buffalo. This was an angry kid, a lower IQ, a kid that made statements about this several times, put it out on Facebook that he was angry at the world and people picked on him. And then we find out later that there were black youths that were bullying him. So now he has this resentment against black kids and black people and, you know, African Americans. And now he's part of the neo-Nazi forum and all. He's an 18-year-old kid that has a low IQ and ultimately depression, anxiety, and had been bullied. And nowhere along the line did somebody say we need to intervene with this kid. Yeah. No, I'm not saying that to you because you don't know all this answer.
So we hear time and time again, we hear calls from both sides when something like this happens, right? We hear one side saying there needs to be more gun control. We need to get these weapons off the street, and there's no place in society for these. And then we hear the other side saying there's a deficit in our mental health system, and there's not enough mental health care, or this is a mental health problem, not a gun problem. And I don't think that either side is 100% right.
No,
and neither side is 100% wrong.
Yeah.
You can't. For the kid in Uvalde, for the kid in Sandy Hook, you can't blame a mental health system that they had not accessed, right? Maybe if somebody in their family had recognized these traits or had recognized these tendencies and had gotten them appropriate mental health care, appropriate counseling, appropriate consultation, maybe we could have staved off some of this. Maybe if people were accessing or had easier access to mental health care, or were less stigmatized about it, or were less reluctant to seek mental health help, maybe we wouldn't see as many of these incidents.
Maybe.
I think that neither side is 100% right. Okay. I think, like I said, I think there are more things that could be done to control gun offenders. Mm-hmm. There are already enough laws on the books at our disposal in the criminal justice system. There are enough laws at our disposal that we can control guns and gun offenders. Right. But there's been so much reform that there's been an uptick now because we've stopped controlling the offenders. Right. So I think if we re-examine how we're doing this, and I've always been a broken windows guy. We talked about this earlier. I'm not saying that the entire country should go to a Rudolph Giuliani in 1990 New York City method of law enforcement. That might do well, but I'm not suggesting that we should do that. Right. But something has to be, like the pendulum has swung too far. Right. I think that we've lost a little bit of the impact of, or a little bit of the deterrence of getting arrested and going to prison. I don't think that deterrent effect is there anymore because people aren't even getting secured bail, much less getting sentenced to lengthy terms.
You know, it's funny when you say that. One of the number one complaints that I have from my police patients, you know, the people that come in to see me with this, is that they will have longer time or more time to do paperwork than these folks have more time within jail. Like by the time they're finishing whatever their paperwork, that person's walking out. They've already had a video arraignment, they post a bail, they're gone. It's insane. And so you're seeing the same people commit crime over and over and over again, and it's this turnstile at the judicial system.
Right. I don't think zero tolerance is the answer, but I think less tolerance is.
Well,
certainly your third or fourth time offenders shouldn't be out walking around. We've got people, locally committing shootings while they're wearing GPS ankles, being monitored by the Office of Probation and Parole. I will say that's not a sexy summer apparel or accessory. They don't care. Like there's no fear of consequences. They know they're wearing a GPS tracker,
and they're still committing.
And they're going out and committing these crimes. And so you can't blame the Department of Corrections. They did their part. They took the steps to monitor this person. Right. If the judge says they're not going to put somebody in jail, then PMP slaps a monitor on them and sends them out because they have to. But the point is the offenders know they're being monitored. Right. And they're still committing the crimes. We had locally just not long ago, an idiot went and committed a crime while wearing his GPS ankle bracelet, then fled from the crime and cut it off afterward. Now, for me, if I'm going to go commit a crime, I'm going to cut it off before.
Right.
And then I'm going to call my probation officer and I'm going to say, listen, man, I got frustrated. I cut it off as my mistake. Come get me and put it back on.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to cover myself.
You're going to do a little bit of a ruse there, Oh, my God. Well, in that point, before our break, at that point, we looked at it in Philadelphia. So Philadelphia had a mass shooting on South Street. I love me some South Street. I mean, if you're in the Philadelphia area, still go to South Street. I love it because you have on one side Lorenzo's Pizza. On the other side, you had Jim's Steaks. And if you've never had a South Philly taco in your entire life, where you take a Lorenzo's slice that's about, 4 foot long, and you take a Jim's Steak and roll it up into that pizza and eat it, then you have not lived a life where you need Crestor. I'm just saying that right now.
Listen.
I'm not allowed to.
You just had a heart valve replaced. You shouldn't even be thinking about it.
I don't, but I do. There's some things that I think about other than salad. All right? I'm just saying. So the mass shooting happens on South Street, right? So the one shooter that apparently was shooting back in self-defense after a physical altercation with somebody, shot back and hit 5 other people besides shooting and killing the guy that shot at him. He's let go. It was self-defense.
It was irresponsible. It was reckless. But I think we have to look at it differently than going out and intentionally killing 5 people.
I agree that we can't.
I don't think that he's wrong and he's culpable.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the same thing as a rival gang member going out stalking the streets trying to find the opposition crew and shooting them up through the window of a car.
No. I agree that there's levels, and what I'm saying is that this is people control. Here's a guy that's fighting with another guy. He pulls out a gun, shoots him because he's being shot at. In the commission of this act, he shoots 5 other people. He has to be culpable for that.
He does have to be held responsible for that.
But he's let go. He's let go. And I think fundamentally we have to look at that. Look, accountability, we talk about accountability in mental health all the time, being, own what's wrong, or, own your own issues, own things that are going on. We created a system right now that there's less and less accountability.
That's exactly my point.
I know. I'm just reemphasizing your point. I'm agreeing with you, partner.
The world always worries about controlling the tool and focuses very little on prevention.
The wielder of the tool.
On prevention through recognizing a pattern of behavior, addressing a pattern of behavior, providing mental health care where it's normalizing mental health care, destigmatizing mental health care. And then after an act, instead of holding the tool responsible, hold the actor responsible.
Right.
And I mean responsible in a real way.
Right.
Like Shawshank Redemption responsible. Like you're in jail forever.
Right.
If you want to get out, you get yourself a poster and a rock pick and you get out. Otherwise, you're here forever.
I miss talking to my friend Andy Dufresne. That's my best. I can't do Morgan Freeman. That's my best. So on that note, we're going to come back and talk about the mental health crisis, but we are going to take a little bit of break. We're also going to talk about all the beverages around us when we come back. So please hang in there. This is The Cop and the Shrink.
The Division of Wellness Services of the National Fraternal Order of Police is committed to leading the efforts to ensure the well-being of law enforcement officers. The FOP intends to no longer react to issues of critical stress affecting its members, but instead take a pre-act approach that is driven by trained peer support, research, empowerment of officers, awareness and stigma reduction, connections to service, and ongoing training and development. Information about the Wellness Division, resources, and publications can be found at fop.net/officer wellness. Donations to the National FOP in support of their Division of Wellness Services and other programs can be made online at nfop.firstresponderprocessing.com. What are you waiting for, Dad? Come on.
And we're back. It's The Cop and the Shrink. Make sure you follow us at thecopandtheshrink.com. Check us out on the interwebs on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all that great stuff. So we do have a variety of stuff around us. We're going to talk about this real quick. So number one, you know about Survivor's IPA. We've talked about this a long time. Our friends down at Big Oyster Brewery had created Survivor's IPA for it. Guess what is happening now?
What's happening now?
We are rebranding this puppy, and we're re-releasing Survivor's IPA out into the wild. It'll be available in Delaware and Pennsylvania and all that stuff. We are actually coming out with a new label concept, a new formula. This is going to be everywhere soon. So stay tuned for it. Go to survivorsipa.com. We still have our favorite winery, Wagon House Winery and Three Boys brand out in Mullica Hill, New Jersey. We got our Captain's Punch, which is dedicated to Captain Alan Davis, retired Captain Alan Davis.
So I've got a bit of big news. If you've been on the legislative watch in Delaware like I've been, looking at all the things that are working their way through the State House and the Senate, one of the bills, to my opinion, one of the more important bills that's on this legislative session, is that Delaware is on the cusp of allowing direct shipment of wine into the state. That's been something that we haven't been able to do here.
Yay!
Like ever. And it's on the legislative agenda. I think the bill is passed. I think it's got to get passed on to the governor for his signature, for direct import, direct delivery of wine to Delaware addresses. So for those of you in Delaware who have not been able to access the Captain's Punch,
right,
now you'll be able to do this.
Oh, and most definitely. Or just take the 30-minute ride over to Mullica Hill and say hi to our friends Heather and Dan over there. But I think if we can get that legislated, oh my God, are you kidding me? This is one of, let me take it out. This is one of the best summer wines I've ever had because it just tastes like Welch's, but it really kicks you in the butt at the end of it.
It's super delicious.
It's super delicious. So we also have another old favorite. Go to drinksurvivors.com. Our coffees are out there. Make sure you go to drinksurvivors.com. All different types of flavored coffees, but we do have an extra little friend that became a part of the Cop and the Shrink Trauma Survivors family. Knob Creek. We did a barrel select. So we have, and it's over here if you could see it, barrel select. This is from Knob Creek. If you see it, it goes over to our Hospital Heroes. The lovely model on the back of the bottle is actually my lovely wife, Laura.
The hell you say?
The hell I say. Laura's a nurse practitioner who helped us start the Hospital Heroes food drive. So Barrel Select, we started with 178 bottles, I believe. I think we're down to like 60, 70, something like that. They have been doing very well. You can pick one of these up if you come up to the Wilmington Street Food Festival, August 6th, Delaware Taco Fest, which is September 24th and 25th, the Delaware Beer Fest on October 1st, and ultimately the Black Tie Sneakers Gala on November 5th. I doubt we will have anything for that by then. We'll probably just keep a couple for raffles, but by that time they will be gone. This is a delicious bourbon, you know. So, and always remember this. I know we sometimes catch hell for this, but remember, folks, you know, you drink responsibly. We would never advocate for somebody doing any drinking and driving, doing anything dangerous with alcohol. But also remember, you know, alcohol can be abused, but if used appropriately and you can have fun with it, that's what we do. It helps us raise money. So if you disagree with the alcohol, we have coffee.
And the coffee itself is delicious. These little coffee pods here are the ones that I use at work. I keep a huge bag of this in my desk, and I use 2 or 3 of those every day that I work.
There you go.
So
there we go. We got all our stuff out of the way. That's why it's around here. And remember, this helps for our creative content and our ramblings. Keeps us alive. Keeps Denny working on his due. Keeps him in school and keeps us safe and all that good stuff.
Everything like that. Yeah.
Everything. So back to the topic at hand. We were finishing up the last section. If you just tuned in, finishing up the last section about behavior control versus gun control. And again, you're always going to have people out there that are going to bang certain gongs, right? You know, they're going to come in and say, no, we have the answer. No, we have this answer. Blah, blah, blah. And the reality is that there is no clear-cut answer.
If somebody had the right answer, we'd know it by now, right? Something would have been effective by now.
Right. And mass shootings, if we look at the damage with not just mass shootings, but these mass murders, and I'm going to call them the mass murders. So we were talking about this earlier. One of the worst mass murderers in a school was actually in Bath, Michigan during I think it was 1934. A gentleman had loaded a milk truck with explosives and drove it into a school, and actually had killed over 30 children, injured and killed teachers and so forth. And at the time, he did not use one firearm. He used a truck.
Right.
This epidemic. This is an epidemic. We are raising these killers in the United States. That this is going on for eons, and it is also going through multiple presidents and multiple administrations. This is not, and dare I say, because my partner and I have very similar ideas on government and politics and so forth, you can't point a finger to Biden. You can't point a finger to Trump. You can't point a finger to Obama or Bush or keep going back to Reagan. You can't point a finger back to Woodrow Wilson and say it was all that administration's fault. That's not what this is. This is a societal issue.
It's a societal problem. This is the problem with the soul of our people.
Yeah.
Like it's not, like you said, it's not something that goes to one administration. If you only go back as far as Columbine,
yeah,
even if you go as far back as Columbine, you see Democrat president, Republican president,
yeah.
Democrat president, Republican president. Like we've gone back and forth.
Right.
And there have been these mass shootings and there have been these mass murders in every administration, no matter who the president is, no matter who the attorney general is, no matter who sits on the Supreme Court, no matter who sits on the circuit courts. These shootings are spanning political ideologies. They're spanning political administrations and presidential administrations and the balance of power in Congress. It happens no matter who's in what they like to call control. There's really no control, but no matter who has claimed that they're in control at the time, these things happen.
It's that proverbial putting your finger into the dam, right? You're putting it in a hole in the dam.
The dam what?
Damn it. The dam. When you put it in there to stop this deluge of water coming at you, and you're looking at it saying, okay, I have the solution. No, you don't. No, you don't. Mm-hmm. Because many, many men and women before you don't have that solution either. Now, I believe in hope. I believe in trying to find the solution, and I want that solution, obviously, for generations ahead. But we're at the finger pointing game. So it's becoming almost, it's becoming boring. It's when somebody all of a sudden has their little feathers ruffled and they come out and they say, well, we are going to do gun control, and that's what we're going to do. Okay, we're missing it. Now, the other cry right now is what I wanted to discuss, and you and I are talking offline with this, is now we're also going to talk about the mental health crisis, and we need more mental health people. You're right.
Okay.
We do.
to get a mental health professional licensed and practicing and able to actually help people takes, depending on what state you're in. Some states allow a clinician to have a 4-year degree.
Yep.
But in most places, it takes between 6 and 8 years to have a practicing, licensed mental health clinician that's actually able to take on an independent slate of clients and start making a difference in people's lives and people's psyches and their thought processes. So, yeah, we need more mental health professionals. And sometime in the 2030s, we'll have a whole fresh crop of them.
We're in a myopic society, so I kind of went off on this a little bit. Not bad. I had nothing horrible, but I had posted the idea as like, look, if we start yelling for mental health crisis right now, we are inundated. As a profession, we are inundated, and there's a couple of reasons that we're inundated. Number one reason that we're inundated, and I'm not blaming the pandemic, but I'm blaming the pandemic with this one. Coming out of COVID, the levels of anxiety and depression have been astronomical. The levels of marital discord has been through the roof. We have rates that have tripled and quadrupled for the number of suicide attempts. We've had rates of literally panic attacks going through the roof, diagnosing of just from simple depression to PTSD, out of control. We have actually seen a crazy uptick in the amount of prescribed antidepressants in the United States since the quote-unquote end of the pandemic.
Something that people haven't thought about is the effect, I can't say people haven't thought about, hasn't got enough attention, is the effect that all of the isolation and all of the loneliness and all of the separation from friends and all the lack of socialization has done to our children.
Oh, God, yeah.
I have a child who was 10 when this thing started, and stayed home from school for half a year, and then went to school for 40% of the time the next year, and then finally got back into school full time in the third year. And what I think are failing to consider is now we have all of these kids who were left to themselves, right? They don't have proper socialization. They don't have any behavioral control that they had in the schools. They feel closed in at home and isolated from everyone. And somewhere in this crop of COVID children that were between 8 and 14 when this thing was going on, somewhere in that crop of kids is probably our next shooter.
Right.
Because they didn't have access, or they weren't given the appropriate level of access to physical and mental health care during that. And the effects of the isolation and the effects of the fear and the fear mongering. I mean, we talked on an earlier episode about 9/11, how 1,853 times they played the plane crashing into the second tower. For a year and a half, these kids, every time they turn on the TV, there's a goddamn ticker tape about how many people have died in their state, nationally, and worldwide of this virus that we've told them to be deathly afraid of.
Right.
And so they're living with that fear. They're living with this ticker tape of how many people are dying every minute in the world of this. They're not allowed to travel. They're not allowed to see their friends. They can't go places and do the things that they're used to doing. In your case, you've got a wife that works in healthcare. She had to come home and decontaminate herself before she could interact with you and the kids. I mean, and this is something these kids grew up. They grew up with isolation and fear for 2.5 years. Right. That has an effect on them. And if you couple that with this dearth of mental health care that you're talking about, what do we have to look forward to now? Like we're waiting for this other shoe to drop.
The wait's over. We're just waiting for what are going to be the homegrown killers at this point. It's sad to say, but I agree with you 100%, is that we have to understand isolation, and we've said this before about the foundation. We don't heal in isolation. We heal in togetherness. And when you take that away from somebody, it's a pressure cooker situation. One of the things, and as you say, especially with the ticker tape, I was also thinking, like, look, how many times have we messed with these kids with masks? How many times have we said, you have to wear a mask, you don't wear a mask, you go to school, you don't go to school, it's on this day, it's not on this day. Just the simple behavior changes that we have had to enact on them. And then who do we blame? We blame the teachers. It's the teacher's fault. That's whose fault this is. These little screwed up kids right now, it's the teacher's fault. Because, well, if the teachers were on Zoom a little bit more, then this would have worked. No. So now here's the great part about this is now here we have this crop of kids that I'm going to say, 4 years from now are going to be in pretty dire straits. These kids 4 years from now are now going to be interacting with society a little bit more, moving into high school. The older ones, those 14, 15-year-olds, are now going to have to choose to go to college or go to work or whatever it is. And guess what we're still not going to have for them? Mental health care. Okay, let's truthfully look at this. Okay, in my little journey of mental health and all that, I knew getting into it. Now I switched, and we have talked about this before. Here's confession of the shrink, right? So when I went into my undergrad, I knew I had a 4-year degree, but I went in as pre-med.
Well, organic chemistry is hard.
Organic and inorganic sucks. So I go into it, and I met these two amazing psychologists. If there was ever a definition of cool psychologists, these were these two cool psychologists. We're not cool. We're kind of iffy at best. But shut up, Dennis. Shut up. Shut your mouth. So I met these two, and it changed my perspective on psychology. So I got into psychology, had to take a whole bunch of classes. I think I took 26 credits in one semester to catch up and all that stuff. And so I graduate with a 4-year degree. Did very, very well. I was very excited. Did very, 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 very well. And then I said, wow, I want to get into the mental health field. And they went, nay, 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 nay. You need to at least get a master's. All right, so that translated to 2 more years. I was like, cool. So can I get licensed? Well, you can get licensed, but you have to take this exam. And now you also have to do 3,600 hours. And at a Temple University, they said you also have to take 2 years in the field before you even apply to the PhD program. Word. Okay, let's do the math, boys and girls. Okay, so from 4-year degree, 2-year degree, now 3,600 hours that I have to do before I am actually licensed.
For those of you that haven't done the math, 2,080 hours a year is a full-time job.
Yeah. So now we're at the 7-8 year mark, right? Oh, hey, why don't you go back for your PhD? Fantastic. All right. So here's a 4-year degree, even more where you're doing your internship, your dissertation, and all that stuff. You are literally looking at 12 to 13 years. Okay. So you just said we have this bubble of kids between 8 and 14 that have been basically screwed up by our society based on isolation, that now by the time that the older ones are adults, our first crop of mental health people aren't even out there yet. We're not even licensed. We're trying to find a shitty job at $18 an hour at some psych hospital, and we don't know shit from Shinola. And we're thinking, wow, I want to go into even further debt by going into my master's. Nay, nay, I say. Nay, nay. That ultimately this battle cry for mental health should have happened after Columbine. It clearly should have happened after 9/11. But now we're screaming saying, well, we're going to make these laws and make it, people can go to it and so forth. My license number in the state of Delaware is 169, okay? I got licensed in 1996. My license number is 169. Guess what license numbers are out there right now?
2,500?
No, the 400s in the state of Delaware. I know somebody that literally, one of our interns, Maggie, that is getting her license right now. She will be in the upper 400s. Doesn't that say something? That this job or this field isn't all that goddamn appealing to people? And why, shall we ask? It's about as appealing as being a cop right now.
Well, because everything's either the cop's
I'm
fault.
putting it to you, Greg.
Because everything that happens is either a cop's fault or there wasn't appropriate mental health care. Right? I mean,
it sucks. You gotta think about this. Is that okay? Let's run down the 4 things, and we could probably put it into the police perspective as well. So number 1, why don't people want to be shrinks? Number 1, the length of time. It takes forever, right?
There's no money in it.
That's number 2.
Number 2, there's no money in it, right? You think, oh, you've got your own practice, you've got your own client list, you've got interns, you've got employees. There's no money in it, right?
Yeah.
It literally pays better to be a psychology professor than it pays to be a psychologist,
So,
a practicing psychologist. Like,
they
say that those who can't teach.
Yeah.
So why don't we pay the ones who can better?
Better, because we as a profession are the lowest paid healthcare workers right now that are licensed, not certified. I put that out there. There's a difference between certification and license. And one of the biggest things between certification and license is the type of test that we take to get that, the hoops that we have to go through, and then ultimately the internships and everything. And hey, guess what? Here's something fun. They're trying to get rid of the word intern. We'll talk about that later. That just pisses me off.
I think we did talk about that. We talked about that to the Florida Mental Health Counselors Association. We did.
We
still can't figure out the problem with the word intern is, but that's...
So there's number 2, right? Pay sucks. Okay. Number three is that the accountability to it. The accountability basically says is that if you screw up, everybody's on you about this. Well, it's if you're an individual therapist out there in the world, and for some reason somebody wants to come at you for a malpractice suit. Look, getting a malpractice suit is actually very difficult in the world, because there's 4 or 5 steps that somebody has to prove that you were being malfeasant, that you were intentionally trying to harm somebody. But the sheer fact that that happens to you goes on your record and could destroy careers. So people are actually very gun shy because of that accountability, right? Fun stuff. And number 4, crushing student debt. Crushing student debt. The average mental health therapist will come out with anywhere between $150,000 to $500,000 worth of student debt. Student loan debt, or just student debt in general. Wow, thanks. So I go 4 years out, and I already am at about $100,000. 4 years out, I'm looking at another possible 6 years of schooling, and you're going to pay me $18 an hour to basically be a babysitter at a behavioral health hospital. That's awesome. I will continuously be in debt for the rest of my life. No, this isn't cool. God, I'm all fired up now. Sorry about that. So go ahead, yell, say, hey, let's get more mental health people. That's cool. Where are we going to get them? So let's blame mental health for this.
There's no quick solution to it, like we said. There's education and observation and internship and supervision. You got to get through all these steps before you can get your license.
Right.
Years away. So the mental health professionals we have now are who we have now for the foreseeable future. And I think that we have to overcome the next thing, which is the stigma. Right? People think, I'm not gonna go see a shrink. I'm not gonna go see a counselor. That's embarrassing, or I'm not crazy, or I don't need the help, or what. It's ridiculous to think you go every 6 months to see your dentist, whether they have cavities or not.
Right.
You go once a year to see your doctor, and every once in a while they find a heart defect. But most of the time you go see your doctor, and it's just for routine blood work and cough into the hernia glove. It's mental health care should be treated like everything else. It should be routine. It should be easy to access. It should be not stigmatized whatsoever, and everyone should do it. Just like you can say, I see such. I go to Total Care Physicians for my health care, and I go to Kaz Family Dentistry for my dental care.
Right.
You should be able to say I go to New Perspectives for my mental health checkups.
Right.
Even if I'm not saying everybody has to be on a once a week regimen of mental health care, but you know what? If you go quarterly and just say, hey, I want to check in, I want to talk, give me an hour and a half, let me talk about how I'm doing, let me talk about the things that bug me, maybe give me some suggestions. It should be less stigmatized, and it should be more easily accessible, and it should be something that people do, not when they need it, but because they don't need it.
Yeah.
Go see your shrink because you don't feel the need yet, and maybe you don't develop that need.
It's the Oprah Winfrey meme. You get a therapist, that one gets a therapist. Well, and the last point to it is that the mental health field is also an aging field. The average age of psychologists in the United States is 54. Thank God I am younger than that.
Until next year.
But that's an average age. Okay, what's the average age of police officer here in the United States right now?
It's getting younger.
It is.
Our big police departments here have actually declined in their average age over the past few years. It's getting younger. Wilmington has a very young police department in comparison to a lot of places. So it's getting younger, but also recruitment is getting tougher.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go into police work because of the societal attitudes towards the police.
Right.
Nobody wants to be ostracized and shut off from society and called names and have things thrown at them and be spit on and be hated just because of the clothing they wear to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. So they're not coming into the field in the numbers that we saw. In 1995, I applied for my job, and there were 650 applicants, and we hired 30 cops. Right. And for the past couple of classes, and this is everybody. This is Newcastle County. This is the state police. This is the city police. You're seeing for 20 positions, you might be seeing 150 applicants.
Right.
And after people take tests and take physicals and take psych exams and take background checks, you're not getting 150 good applicants all the way through the process.
No.
So you find yourself in a conundrum. Do you hire fewer people than you need, or do you lower your standards to hire the number of people that you want?
Right. So it's and also to pair that out, what is it? There's a general formula for every one officer. It's like 260 residents in a given area, something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
there's like a formula, right?
But it's also that's based on crime rates and population density and things.
Right.
The ratio is higher in cities where it's more compact, right? Than when you're talking about suburban departments and rural departments. You might have one officer for every 10,000 people out in the country.
Right.
But you're going to have an officer for every 315 people in a city.
Right. Right. So now let's look at mental health. And I'm putting that out there. It's one for every, 25,000. It's insane. It's insane if we look at nationally. If we just look at my master's program, we had in the clinical track, we had 2 tracks. We had the school track, the academic track, and then we had the clinical track. Total 2 tracks, 48 people.
Remember that? Remember the Last Crusade?
Yeah.
You chose poorly.
You chose poorly. Yeah. Well, this is what it is that there was those 2 tracks. So say we split them in half. That's 24 people going into the clinical world, right? Out of 48 divided by 2, that's 24. So 24 people going into the clinical world at a major university. All right. Out of those 24, 17 of us graduated. Okay. And then it still takes time to get licensed and all that. And I've lost track from people. There's a couple that I know. But out of that 17 that I actually ended up graduating, truthfully, 10 are still practicing today. Out of that clinical track, 10. That's it. Now in the PhD program, 19 still practicing. Out of that 19 that ended up getting the PhD in clinical psychology, still practicing 9. We can't pull these people out of our ass at this point. This is truthfully fact. It's difficult. It's a long road and so forth. So when you yell mental health crisis, we need people right now, it's not happening.
No, you're not getting them.
It's not happening. And if we see lower recruitments in policing, we see lower recruitments in mental health, what are we going to do? I was talking, I got my oil changed at Valvoline, right? And I was talking to the guy and I said, how long you been doing this? He said, I've been here, for about 8 years and all that. I said, okay. I said, did you have to go to like Votech or, anything like that? And he goes, no, I took a 4-week training course. You can't freaking do that with mental health. You just can't. That's not happening. No, Dennis, you are not taking a 4-week course and learning how to talk to people. That'd be like...
I took a test for my CompTIA.
For computers,
Yeah.
You could be like your grandfather. My father, amazing. I'll tell the story real quick. And I love Big Denny to death. He's one of those, you look at him and he wants to kill you at any moment, but he's a great guy. He told me, he said once, I'd love to do your job. And I said, what do you mean, Pop? And he goes, well, you sit on your ass and you talk to people all the time. And I was like, yeah, that's about it. And he shadowed me one day. And I think I killed the old man when he shadowed me because the gods of trauma were staring directly down and shining on me. This man had gone through hours and hours and hours of watching what I did. And then at the end of the day, when I called him, I swear to God, I broke him because he's a creature of habit. He gets up at the same hour every day, gets his coffee. It always has to be Dunkin' decaf. He likes the French vanilla if anybody's out there wanting to send my father presents, or whatever it is. And he normally gets up at the same time. 5 hours after his normal wake-up time, it was when he woke up and he called me and he goes, Denny, you could have your effing job. They're difficult. They're difficult positions. So calling right now for the one slap therapy isn't going to work, or one sweeping reform of everything is not going to work. And it's sad. We're stuck where we are. We didn't do uplifting tonight. We didn't. And we still have more topics to go. But
and they're not uplifting
either.
Yeah,
no, they're not. They're not. Just hang on to your butts when you're listening to us. So we're going to take a little bit of a break. We're going to be back. It's the Cop and the Shrink. You've seen their faces and read their stories. Our hospital heroes and first responders are remarkable, and their strength is inspiring as they continue to work around the clock in the fight against COVID-19. Our mission is to show these frontline workers that we support them through the simple act of providing them with a prepared meal. For a $6 meal donation, you could help a hospital hero in a struggling restaurant stay focused and positive through the COVID-19 pandemic. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, but we still need your help to see our hospital heroes through this fight. Our heroes are why we do what we do, but you are the how. Text Hospital Heroes to 44321 to donate a meal to a hero. Please visit us at hospitalheroesfooddrive.org to learn more about our mission. So, welcome back to The Cop and the Shrink. Remember to follow us, thecopandtheshrink.com. Check out the interwebs on Facebook, on Instagram. Also, make sure you follow us on TikTok. We're going to get back to that. I, again, took a little hiatus, but we're going to get back to our little weird laws in the United States and just talk about normal rifty things. So that's what it is.
But for a third segment today, we've talked about some of the ills of society, and,
Right.
and when we talked about in a little show prep earlier, we talked about the finger pointing. We talked about the differences of opinion, the philosophical differences, the ideological differences that we have in this country, and that's really what makes the United States of America great, is the fact that people can have philosophical and ideological and religious differences and moralistic differences, and we still, for the most part, manage to function as a nation. But like we said when we were discussing this earlier, one of the more disturbing trends that I've noticed in the past dozen or so years is that the rift gets wider and wider
Huge.
every day. And I remember a time where you didn't know your neighbor's political bent. You didn't know which candidate they voted for unless they put a sign out in their yard. You didn't care. You were friends by virtue of being friends. You liked each other. You liked personality. You enjoyed spending time together, or you were just being neighborly, or what have you. I grew up in a block of townhomes where there were 7 families on each side of a single lane street. We grew up there. Everybody had kids that were about the same age. All the parents, all the adults were about the same age. We grew up all intermingled, playing with one another. We were surrounded by an apartment community. There were hundreds of kids there, and the families all knew each other and all knew each other's kids. We didn't care. We didn't care what you thought about the President of the United States. We didn't care how you were registered to vote. We didn't care whether you voted or who you voted for. Right. We didn't know where you came down on the major social or political or fiscal issues at the time. Right. We just didn't care. And now... And I think social media is going to be the downfall of Western civilization, because now information travels instantly, and people, whether to a benefit or a detriment, people use that ability to communicate instantly to communicate every thought and every feeling and every opinion they have, as if every thought they have is important to everyone else. Right. And the problem with that is the finger pointing. Right. Right. I'm not going to talk about which side of any of these major issues I come down on. You can listen to some of these episodes and figure some of it out for yourself. But in the past week, the Supreme Court has handed down some big decisions.
Huge.
And it has caused an uproar in this country. People are calling their friends and family members evil. People are calling their friends and family members, zealots or fanatics, and people are fighting with people who are formerly their friends, fighting within their own families. And we've got to, and I think this is what, and to harken back to the earlier segments, this kind of thing is what leads to the violence, right? We see an issue that needs to be addressed, and that's fine. Let's address it appropriately. We see people taking to the streets and committing violence because the Supreme Court took a decision that had been made some decades ago, reversed it, and handed it back to local politicians.
Right.
No matter what side of the issue you're on, does it make sense that you should want to, berate somebody or hate somebody or do violence against somebody? We've seen this decision handed down, and since then we've seen violence in the streets. We've seen protests and burnings and vandalism and assaults, and it doesn't make any sense for us as a society to be hurting one another and to be damaging one another's property as the result of something 9 unelected judges did, or 535 elected representatives did, or one old man that lives in Centerville did. We can't be out here hurting one another and hating one another over what's that? 536 and 12, so 548 people.
Right.
We're out here hurting each other. 330 million of us are hurting each other and hating each other over what 548 people do.
Right. Well, we've given the government the supreme power over our moralism. That's what we have truthfully done. We've given the government that ability to now rule us. It used to be, tell me if I'm wrong with this, it used to be that, you look up to a politician as admirable. Very much like you would look up to a police officer or a firefighter. And these are the law changers. These are the folks that are going to help us. And now it's, I hate to say it, it's this clown show. I've seen monkey shit fights at the zoo that seem a little bit better than what the hell's going on in politics right now. And I hate to say that because I am very much a person about democracy. I'm very much a patriot. I said this to a patient. I said, look, I got up this morning, right? Got up, gave the baby a bottle. That was very nice. Gave her a bottle, got myself dressed, tried to wake up the almost 21-year-old that's home from Penn State. Tried to wake her up. That didn't happen because it sounded like like Gollum. I think, hey, I was fine. We're not going to wake her up. Got in the car, drove down. I stopped at Panera, because I belong to the SIP club, so I was able to get my free iced tea. But I did. I will say I got two. It probably doesn't work with the SIP club, but it's unlimited all day, so why can't I get two? So anyway, I got that. Then I drove. My son calls me and says, hey, I got to get my registration. So I check and say, okay, well, why don't you go to AAA? He's like, cool, I could do this. He gets the registration on his car, and I came down here, happy as all anything, walked in, saw my first patient, saw my second patient, and I was unencumbered all day. I wasn't asked for papers. I wasn't stopped at the border. I wasn't, taken away from earning a living or anything like that. So I truly believe in the United States. However, if you look at social media right now, you look at the news right now, the United States is made to look like a complete shit show.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like a complete shit show.
People from other places in the world must envision this as a place where there's just constant rioting in the street, constant division between two factions of people. Right. It's from the outside looking in, it must look completely dysfunctional. But like you said, similar to you, I got up this morning, struggled to wake up my child. When I got her up,
notice a theme.
We went out and we did the things that we needed to do. Right, we went out and I got a cup of coffee. I'm not a member of the SIP club, but I'm a loyal Wawa fan, so I went out and got my cup of coffee from the Wawa. I dropped a package off at FedEx. The kid got less grouchy about being out as the day wore on, so I offered to take her to a movie. We went and saw a movie.
Nice.
All right. And nobody told me what movie I could watch or what movie I must watch. I watched the movie. It didn't seem to be censored at all. Right. It was just exactly, it was shown exactly the way the director cut it.
Right.
And we went and I ordered some ethnic food for dinner.
Well, stop. Stop it.
My day was completely unencumbered.
Did you get snacks while you were watching your movie?
I did. Did
anybody tell you couldn't get those snacks?
I got about 4 gallons of popcorn. But so from the outside, or from the way that the media portrays it, when they, like I said, with the ticker tape of the deaths, or with the spray paint on the front of the courthouses, and the fires and the violence and the riots in the big cities, from an outside observer, we look completely dystopian. It may as well be the Hunger Games here.
Right.
But I tell you, I didn't run into anybody hateful or negative or out to get me or anything. I ran into a couple of bad drivers. Yeah, but that's every day, and I'm one of those, so I get it.
Yeah.
But
you're pretty terrible. It's
not this dystopia that social media and mainstream media would lead you to believe. But what they, what's always the old axiom of newspapers is, if it bleeds, it leads, right? So you've got to get the most sensational, most attention-grabbing thing out there and get the clicks.
So let me ask this question, and I know this is a rough question to ask you. The rough exterior, right? Did you smile at anybody today outside of your daughter? Did you acknowledge the person at Wawa and say thank you?
Well, yeah. I acknowledged other customers and said good morning to people. I had a little chat with the cashier at the Wawa. Yeah, with the attendants at the movie theater, the people with the food and the tickets. Yeah.
Was there an issue?
No.
There was not one issue for you, and oh, surprise, folks, we're both white men.
And
Was there an issue with you saying hi to different people? And you had ethnic food. Was there an issue with ordering that ethnic food and eating it? And did they hate you for being there because you were a different ethnicity?
No, and you know what? I didn't ask, nor was I asked all day today whether I was an advocate for abortion or whether I hated firearms. I wasn't asked about any of that.
Huh. Okay, so I'm curious now, because apparently people are assassinating other people online like it's their job. Like, I'm going to destroy your reputation. I'm going to put out these salacious messages in there that ultimately would say that we are at such a divide that we can't have days like we just did. Now, are we so privileged that this is occurring because it's just us? We are that privileged?
So you know what's happening online, and I love a man who puts his money where his mouth is, and he proved that this is really his life philosophy. Mike Tyson said people have got too comfortable with saying shit to people and not getting punched in the mouth for it.
Right.
And the man puts his money where his mouth is. But that's the problem. So you've got this.
No, the best meme, Kith.
You've got this veil to hide behind on social media, and it's become, I don't know if it's appropriate, but it's at least become mainstream acceptable to just say the most vile and hateful things on social media to people that you're supposed to be friends with, people you're supposed to love, right? Love thy neighbor, except you're an asshole when you're online.
Right. There's such a dichotomy with that. It's insane.
It's become acceptable to say the most vile and hateful and divisive things. And I think that these issues, there's been this rush to the edges, right? I like to believe that the vast majority, like upwards of 85% of this country, hovers somewhere around the middle of what we call the political spectrum.
Right.
But the most vocal and most vile and most extreme of both wings, there's been like this rush to the edges. Like, how extreme can I be? And how much can I hate the other side?
Right.
And how much can I scream from the rooftops that I hate the other side?
They're always going to be the loudest.
And that's the problem.
They always will be.
There are 85% of us sitting here in the middle going, what the hell's wrong with everybody?
Right.
Like, I don't know how she voted and don't care. Hey, honey, this is good coffee. Thank you. Here's your tip.
Yeah. So I live in a house divided, right? You know, and I will call this out. We know this. We have my son, our producer here. He is a conservative. He is a conservative view and what have you.
He's a conservative light.
Conservative light. He is, what have you.
Shall we call you a libertarian then? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he's libertarian.
Libertarian.
Yeah, libertarian.
We have my daughter, who is the ultra liberal, who is ready to fight with anything. I agree. I actually agreed with her stance on Roe v. Wade, and she argued with me that I didn't agree with her. So I said, okay, I am middle leaning towards conservative. The wife is middle leaning more liberal, and especially within healthcare, because that's her profession or whatever. We are a house divided, right? We are this is who we are and what have you. And all of us in this house look at these extremists and go, what the hell is going on with these people?
What's wrong with people? I had a partner one time, and he married a young lady who worked for the mayor of our city. Mm-hmm. And they probably are a little left-leaning. They're a little liberal-leaning. Their family, their traditions, their values, what have you, they're a little bit left-leaning. I can still hear him to this day, and this was 14 years ago. He looked at me one day in the car and went, "You are probably the most Republican son of a bitch I've ever met in my life." I was like, I don't know what that means, but I mean, thank you. I still love you.
Yeah,
I'm not mad at you. I still love you. You're still my friend.
Yeah. Could you imagine like literally just going in and then sizing somebody up? Let's do
Well, now, granted, we spent 12 hours a day together. He knew where I stood on everything.
But I would say just going to size somebody up, right? Let's do, the police profiling, or let's do what we call diagnosing, and literally going into a Wawa or going into a grocery store. We could use my beloved Wegmans as the test case, right? Going there and standing at the doors, waiting for people to come in and out, and just labeling them as they come out. Republican, Democrat. Say nothing else. Just yell it loudly so that they can hear it as they walk out. Republican. Democrat.
I'll tell you one better. Just get a blue card and a red card. Hold them up like a soccer ref.
I would like to see that reaction. I would love to see. I don't know. I don't know. You know how many listeners we're gonna have with this one, but I'd love to see it. I just take video of it or whatever. So somebody's walking out of Wegmans, you're throwing up your red car. I want to see how many people fight back, or how many people actually take ownership of that. So you walk out and you throw up the red card, and whatever man that comes walking out there, throw it up, Republican. And I want him to come out damn straight, I'm a Republican. And that's how it's going to be. And then I want the Democrat to come out, whoever to come out and throw it up and go, no, I'm not no, how dare you call me a Democrat? I want to see that, to see what ownership people have with these extremes.
I was watching a video online. I try to just watch funny cat videos because they don't piss me off. But in there, that somebody snuck in a funny kid video.
There you go.
I was watching funny cat videos. They snuck in. It was a little girl. She came running down the hallway crying, "Mama!" like crying all the way down the hallway. And you couldn't understand what she was saying. She said it like 4 or 5 times, and she finally caught her breath, and she said, "Daddy called me a Democrat," and she was in tears.
It's that labeling. I think people have now put it to the point where if you identify with either side, they're going to castigate you. They're going to point at you as you are the devil. And I don't know what agenda is being pushed. I don't know what the hell's going on in our administration or society or even with this. But if you automatically say that you're a Republican, you're the absolute, you're the worst. You're the worst.
I have thoughts and opinions and values and morals that are my own, that I've developed over a lifetime.
You have hopes and dreams. One day you would like to have a monkey riding a... No, sorry.
Because your values are not my values, that doesn't mean your values are wrong.
No.
They're just different.
Right.
I don't have to hate you. I don't have to want to put you in a concentration camp. I don't want to have to institutionalize you. We're just different. We just have different worldviews. We were raised by different people in very different circumstances.
Right.
We just see the world differently. Right. And as soon as people start to realize again that my opinions are my opinions, and my thoughts are mine alone, and they don't make yours wrong.
No.
And they don't make me evil. As soon as we can start to realize that about one another, we can start getting along again.
Right. Except
with those wing nuts on the extreme edges of both sides. Nobody needs to get along with them.
Right. Well, they don't even get along with themselves. It's literally, there was, I don't know if we ever said this on any of it. If we do, I apologize because I'm bringing it up again. There was a Dr. Seuss special. Did you, the Starbelly Sneetches?
Yes.
You remember that?
Yep.
The Sneetches, where, one had one star and they had our stars on theirs and whatever it is. And eventually they all got blended and there were stars on asses, and it was just this craziness of it. And that's where we are with this. It's like we're running around to try to figure it out. I got into a quasi, it wasn't even an argument. It was just a little weird. Somebody was claiming that I had, I didn't know what it was to struggle. I had no clue.
I've been told that.
You have that, you have no clue. You are this way and you're privileged and so forth. And look, my ownership is my ownership into my own life. And I just kind of laughed and I said, well, if you believe that, I said, where did I grow up? I said, tell me about my life. Because obviously you're saying that I am privileged, I am this way and whatever, whatever it is. Well, you probably, and they chose, Greenville and said I had gone here, gone there, and whatever it is. And I said, do you know, and where I grew up, part Cleveland Heights, that also had family in the flats and Goat City and all these row homes and so forth in Wilmington that if you look at them now, you're like, oh my God, how do they fit 2 people, let alone 4 or 5 or 20, back in the day in these little row homes and whatever. And they were like, yeah. And I said, that's where I grew up. I said, my family's blue collar. I said, I love them to death. They raised me with values that helped me through life. And I said, but the number one thing that they always raised me with was being charitable. And that's how I've raised my children. well, but you live here and you drive this and you do this. And I was like, so what you're saying is that I can't better myself in my society.
I shouldn't have been successful, damn it.
I shouldn't have put in all those hours to get my license. I shouldn't have seen every patient that I did. I shouldn't have gone to all those crisis calls. I shouldn't have done all those trainings. I shouldn't have taken time away from my family to do the things that I did to be in a successful position that ultimately that I can afford certain things and have my children be raised a little bit differently than I did. And they just looked at me and said, well, that doesn't take away your privilege. And I went, I'm just lost. I am really lost at this point. I said, I just told you where I came from. And I said, so what you're telling me is my privilege came from the fact that my parents gave me a work ethic that is, bar none, one of the best work ethics out there. That's not what I'm saying. Like, I didn't know what to do with this.
We just have to stop fighting with each other. We just have to stop, like...
Stop using words and start using fists.
Throwing some hands.
We need to remember what it means to agree to disagree, right?
Right,
We don't,
right.
So, okay, we don't see eye to eye. Great.
Yeah. Shake the hand and move on.
We don't see eye to eye. So
I didn't shake your hand because I didn't want to see eye to
well,
eye.
screw you then. I think
I got two hands. They're getting thrown.
I think I'll play the shrink. I'll be the shrink cop tonight. I'm going to give everybody homework.
Oh God.
All right. If you want the what I think is one of the more brilliant illustrations of the American political system, and where we are as a society, watch season 8 of American Horror Story. I think it was season 8. Oh, it was the season is called Cult.
Right.
American Horror Story Cult. Watch that season. It's 11 episodes. You get a case of Captain's Punch. You can watch it on a Saturday. Like you can watch the whole season on a Saturday. But that's it. It's a perfect illustration of where our political and societal systems are right now. It's you see two sides. You see the ultra liberals and you see the ultra MAGA conservatives, and you see. And they blend. They're like the Sneetches. Right. Like their stories cross and intersect.
Back to Dr. Seuss.
And they all end up like blended. Yeah. In the end, like working together. Yeah. And also against one another. Right. It's a
the
crazy
conspiracy of the conspiracy.
It's like holding a magnifying glass on the American society. It really is.
But I think you have said it perfectly that there is 85% of us in this world right now. That what's the emoji with the hands that are up to the side going, I don't know, like look at this 85%. And I think we're also I'll put out, I like the homework, but I'll throw this out. Check out, what people are posting and how many people you snooze on your social media.
You know what? I don't snooze anybody because I want.
You want to see it?
Yeah.
Sorry if I haven't posted on your site, on your Facebook or Instagram, I probably snoozed you. I'm being honest.
I want to know what people are thinking. I want to know where people are coming from so I can meet them there. I don't want to judge anybody, but let's meet where we are. Like let's meet people where they are.
Come on, a little judgy.
I'm internally a little judgy. I'm internally a hell of a lot judgy.
All judgy. Come on.
But it's important to know where people are coming from. Right? It's important to meet people where they are.
I agree with you. I don't disagree. I just think it's now that we've thrown our hands up because ultimately we don't know what to do with these extremists. And we're allowing them to paint a very, very weird picture of what our society is.
The worst thing that has started happening is like Dennis said, they're the loudest ones. They're the most like in your face, vocal out there. The extremists are. We've started electing the extremists to public office. Yeah. We
because
can't,
nobody else wants the damn job.
Middle of the road people can't get elected anymore.
Because who wants the job? Literally, who wants the job outside of you?
I don't want the job.
I don't want the job. I mean, think about it. I give it to them. I don't want that job. So then you're getting this extreme person that goes in there that has this weird agenda that in 4 years, if they don't get reelected again, the other extreme weird guy comes in and erases everything that the first weird extreme guy did. And you just constantly do this dance every 4 years. And now, God, let's impeach everybody. Let's call a vote for no confidence. Let's continue this unbelievable shit show. But
let's not.
Or let's not.
Yeah.
Let's not. And speaking of a not shit show, this has been The Cop and the Shrink. We're at the end. My God, we got fired up tonight, man.
We're almost at the end. I would like to put a
Go
shameless
ahead.
plug out
Oh,
there.
God, I forgot.
I would like to shamelessly plug our new project. Okay?
I'm
The
sorry.
Trauma Survivors Foundation has decided we're going to test the waters on a new project.
Right?
We have talked to professionals in the field. We have seen these creatures at work, and we've decided that we want to maybe test the waters on this new project. And this project is we would like to provide therapy dogs or facility dogs to first responder agencies, whether they be police, EMS, or fire. We would like to procure trained therapy dogs or trained facility dogs and provide them to our partners in public safety. To that end, we have started a GoFundMe under the Trauma Survivors Foundation, and we're having a raffle.
Yay.
All right, the raffle tickets will be in later this week. We are raffling off. The grand prize will be a 2022 Jeep Wrangler,
Yes.
or a almost equivalent cash prize if you elect for the prize instead of the cash instead of the vehicle.
We're a 78 Volvo with 312,000 miles on it for
That's
nostalgia
worth a lot-
purposes.
That's worth a lot of money. But so we're going to have a raffle and a GoFundMe to try to raise money for our first couple of dogs that
Yep.
we're going to try to give away to our partners in the first responder professions.
So one of the kickoff points, not only at our Facebook page, because you can go to facebook.com/the Trauma Survivors Foundation, but Dennis and I will be headed down to Arlington, Texas. That'll be the last weekend of July 29th, I believe it is, for the Texas All-Star Craft Beer and Wine Festival, where Trauma Survivors Foundation is the charity of the event. And hopefully we will have some raffle tickets with us. And the cool part is that if you do win the grand prize of this Jeep, the dealership that we have partnered with is Vidian Jeep up in Newtown Square. Our man Jose up there said that they will send this Jeep wherever if you choose the Jeep.
If you happen to win it in Arlington, Texas, or if you happen
We're
to
going
win
to get
it
you a Jeep.
in Orlando, Florida, we will send
it down. So again, look for us. We're going to post up where we're going to be. We're going to be at the different events around this area. It'll be out in Pittsburgh, October 1st for the Pittsburgh All-Star event. But we're going to have it around, and you just find us and you pay a little bit of money, and hopefully, we start helping even more and more people. That's what our mission is, right?
And to not hate anyone.
Not to hate any. I've known you too long to hate you. Known you. You're godfather of my baby. I ain't gonna hate you.
Good thing.
You piss me off sometimes. I ain't gonna
Some
hate
of the
you.
extremist ideas I had, you might.
God, she's too little to handle a gun right now. Funny, and again, we're prolonging the end, but a funny story with this. This child right now, God bless her, she's going to be a year old, right? She's 3 weeks away, 3 or 4 weeks away. She's going to be a year old. And she finds standing to be the funniest damn thing in the entire planet. She'll grab onto something, stand up, and just start laughing out loud. This is what we should be in our society right now. Just stand and just start laughing your ass off like an almost 1-year-old. It's a good one.
Well, I'm glad we're back.
We are back. Make sure you follow us. Again, thecopandtheshrink.com. Get on the webs, get on the interwebs, follow us. Look out for the raffle. It'll be out there. Check out all of our merch that's there as well. But remember, stay safe this week. Stay safe out there. Keep plugging away. We're going to be okay in our society. We truthfully are going to be okay. But thanks for listening to The Cop and the Shrink.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.